afternoon, everybody, and welcome to At the Book for Thursday, February 3rd, here on bet.NOLA.com and brought to you by Caesar's Sportsbook. I'm Zach Ewing. That's Jim Derry in the middle, and Devin Jackson is at the book today. Our producer is at Caesar Sportsbook at Harrah's New Orleans Casino, and having a good time. We've all enjoyed almost a week now of mobile betting here in Louisiana, so I don't know about you guys, but my thumbs are getting calluses from all the betting I'm doing. I'm trying to bet through those bonuses, trying to get all that stuff done. So it's been a pretty good week. I made some money. I bet through most of my bonus. I don't expect every week to be a winner, but so far so good, guys.
Yeah, same for me. I just counted a little while ago. I've made 44 bets on Caesar Sportsbook already. So
wait, how many did you say?
44 in a week. So I got a lot to go to get through those bonuses, because you got to at least bet everything to get that bonus match, and we'll worry about what to do when we get through the bonus match, and then we'll figure it out. But yeah, I mean, I can't complain with where I am. I think I'm slightly in the minus. I'm pretty close to even so far. So, but that includes the big hedges that I made on my Super Bowl bet. So if you take those out, then I'm pretty positive.
Yeah, and you can't recount that. And I mean, honestly, like, without sending the wrong message out there, this is one of those times when you count your win percentage a little bit differently, because I know, Jim, you and I have talked. We're betting more than we normally would, because you have 30 days. You have to match your deposit amount to get the bonus money. And so you're just, hey, anything that looks even remotely good, yeah, I'll put money on. Because if you even hit 40%, even 35%, you're going to make money. You just, even if you go over, you're going to break even. You're just going to waste a lot of time. But all you're trying to do is bet through that money. And so that's why you count your percentage a little bit differently than you normally would in this game. Speaking of which, you can get your own bonus if you have not yet signed up for the Caesar Sportsbook app. Get it done. Go to NOLA.com/Caesars. You bet $20, you get $300 in bonus money. And so that's actually a pretty good deal, because you don't have to bet through a ton of money. Just $20, just, hey, a couple of $10 bets, 4 or $5 bets, one $20 bet, however you want to do it. Then you get that $300 bonus. And you can kind of use that as your bankroll to play with for a while. Or if you want to put in a little more, that's fine too. So the promo code there is NOLA300, or you can just go to NOLA.com/Caesars, and we got the hookup for you there. Devin is at the book. What's the scene at Harrah's today?
It's pretty busy today. I walked in, was walking my way over to the Caesar Sportsbook section, and there's a lot of people at the tables. There's quite a bit of people actually behind me right now that are kind of looking at the machines here on the side that goes along with mobile betting. So a lot of people are, partaking in the mobile betting and getting signed up, and people are here betting. It's pretty exciting.
And it's an entertaining thing to do. And of course, we endorse all responsible gaming. Don't bet over your head. Bet.
I have a question from Mr. McClure. Go ahead, put that up on the screen. Put that up on the screen. It's not something we would normally do. I know, but put it up on the screen. Here's a question from Mr. McClure. If you're obviously mocking sports betting, because we've seen you before, and talking about, if you're mocking sports betting, why would you come to a show that is focused on sports betting? So if you don't endorse it, that's great. I don't think you should sign up for any of the bonuses. I don't think you should bet any of your own hard-earned cash. But it's legal in the state of Louisiana, except in 9 parishes, and a lot of people enjoy doing it. So we're not endorsing anyone going out and betting money. If you feel like you should go bet, you want to enjoy it and partake. But the fact is that people have been betting long before betting was legal. Okay? And they can go to a casino and bet. They can go play blackjack. They can go play poker. They can go play video slots where the odds are absolutely atrocious. Here's something where you control not only what you bet, but you have a lot more control on what you're betting on. It's not like putting money into a slot machine and it hits whenever it gets to whatever X quantum physics it needs to get to hit. Here, if you think you've been following the Pistons and you have educated yourself upon what you're betting on, hey, I mean, you kind of control those things, right, Zach? I mean, it's just I don't understand, and I'm trying not to be too ugly to the readers because I don't want to tick anybody off. But I just don't understand why someone would come on and ask that question.
I would just say that it is a form of entertainment like any other form of entertainment. Correct. You have to be careful, and we're going to tell you every single week that you have to be careful with it. If you feel like you're in over your head, you need to stop, and we'll never not say that. But having said that, it is a lot of fun when you do it the right way, and so that's what we endorse. Speaking of which, let's tell you about today's show. We're going to talk Super Bowl 56 quite a bit, of course. It's coming up in a week and a half here on February the 13th, 10 days away, the Bengals and the Rams. We are going to talk a little basketball. We're going to talk a little golf, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am this weekend, and whatever else we want to do. Uncle Big Nick trying to stir trouble. We'll just leave that alone. I think you said your piece.
I like to say my piece.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. The Super Bowl, by the way, as we talk about the Super Bowl here, we're going to bring on Spencer the Guru Urquhart to talk about some prop bets as well. And he has been researching his keister off, as Jim would say, in prop bets. And here's your line. It's still Rams minus 4.5, open 3.5, has moved up a point. And like we said on Monday, these Super Bowl lines tend to stabilize pretty quickly unless there's some injury or suspension news or something that would force a shift.
Or big money.
Yeah. But even at this point, there's so much money on the Super Bowl that it would have to be a really big bet to change the line. It seems to have stabilized at Rams minus 4.5, total of 48.5, which has actually ticked up, I think, a point. No, maybe it's ticked down a point. Now that I'm thinking, it was 49.5.
It was 40. It's going down for sure.
Yeah, it is stabilized a little bit. We'll see what it does over the next 10 days, and we'll be talking plenty about that. Again, we'll be making our final picks next Thursday on At the Book for the Super Bowl. And speaking of next week, as we welcome Spencer, we're going to be talking on Tuesday, a special edition of the Fantasy Roundup, 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday, these same channels. We'll talk some DFS for the Super Bowl and some prop bets. And Spencer, I'm glad you could be here to talk. We're just going to do a little bit of teaser on the prop bets. Spencer has looked at every Gatorade color dumped on the coaches over the last 20 years. He has looked at the length of every national anthem over the last 15, 20 years. We're going to talk some exotic prop bets as well as your kind of run-of-the-mill yardage and touchdown prop bets. So, Spencer, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys. I'm just excited for the Super Bowl, and not this week, but the week after. Just really excited getting in all these props and researching them. It's crazy looking at the trends with the different ones. The ones I'm feeling good about right now are some player props that I've looked, and I'm like, man, these could be good to get in on these early, because a lot of those ones, like I mentioned, the Gatorade and the national anthem, are so hit or miss, where like the player props, though, I feel like could be a good opportunity to cash in.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk about those as we go on. And then again, for a full hour at 3:30 on Tuesday, we'll talk prop bets and daily fantasy and give a little fantasy basketball update and also some even look aheads at fantasy football for next year. So tune in 3:30 p.m. on the Fantasy Roundup. But for right now, let's hone in on the Super Bowl. Again, the Rams are 4.5-point favorites. Sometimes, one thing about doing player props, and Jim, you mentioned this last week, the player prop lines can sometimes tell you the way the bookies think the game is going to go.
For sure. And I will say this to Mr. McClure, I will not be advocating betting on the Gatorade color or how long the national anthem will take. That is,
you can get sharp information on the national anthem, man.
You might as well roll dice on that one. Yeah, for sure. I think that if you looked at last week and all the player props that were kind of geared towards Kansas City, I think they thought Kansas City was going to win in a blowout. So, and
it sure looked that way for a while.
It sure did. And the money that was bet on Kansas City also told us that. And conversely, I think they thought the Rams would cover, which they did not. So, but that one was really close. Anyway, for sure, I think you can look at and you get odds like Burrow at MVP at plus 230 was the last I looked at it. I'm not sure exactly what it is now, but you kind of gauge that against what the money line is on the game, and I think maybe there is value there if you think Cincinnati's going to win straight up. There are all kinds of things, but and I know Spencer will get into it, but when I start diving into some of these player props, it's definitely going to be geared towards do I think there's value there and against whatever a money line might be, not necessarily the point spread, because that's really inconsequential to what I'm looking at. It's going to be kind of a money line versus certain player props against their averages and try to weigh out where I can find the best values there.
One player prop that's out there, and I guess you could call this a player prop or maybe a future. It's actually been out there for a week now, Super Bowl MVP. And your favorite right now, and this is pretty common, the favorite would be the quarterback on the favored team, and that's Matthew Stafford of the Rams. He's plus 120. And we talked about this last week. Joe Burrow was as high as plus 1,000, plus 1,500 last week. Obviously, you needed the Bengals to upset the Chiefs. But there was a Louisiana bettor who I believe got $1,500 down at Caesar Sportsbook on Burrow at 10-1 before they beat the Chiefs. I like that bet simply from the perspective of the Bengals are plus 180 on the money line. And so it's basically like a free odds boost because I just don't see a whole lot of situations in which the Bengals win the Super Bowl and Joe Burrow is not the MVP.
I don't see it. I don't really see. I mean, I think it's as high as 9-1, 10-1 that if they win the Super Bowl, he's going to be the MVP. Put it this way: if it's close, I mean, they always give it to the quarterback anyway if it's close. Mm-hmm. But in this case, I think you would have to have a Jamar Chase go for like over 200 yards almost. I mean, but all the talk besides on Burrow for the past 6 to 8 weeks is even going to fuel this even more. So I think for sure, I just don't see any good bet on the Bengals unless Mixon were to go for like 170 or something. Burrow only throws for 200 and he scores a couple of touchdowns. I don't see that against this Rams defense. So yeah, I think if you like the Bengals, I think your best bet may be Burrow to win MVP.
Spencer, I know MVP wasn't specifically one you mentioned, but what values do you see on this board?
Yeah, I like Burrow a lot there at the 2-1, just because I think he's like y'all said, he's gonna sure win it if the Bengals win the game. And I'm thinking the Bengals could easily do it. I was thinking the line would be more at 3 or 3.5 as opposed to 4.5. But yeah, he'd definitely be my pick. And then as far as a long shot, I think if the Rams win, it could be. If it would be a low scoring deal, maybe Aaron Donald is a long shot. If he would get like 3 or 4 sacks and the Bengals O-line would crumble, I wouldn't bet on that per se. But I think if I had to pick a long shot, that would probably be the one I'd roll with.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the Caesars props is Aaron Donald's minus 180 to get a sack. So I mean, he's expected almost 1 to 2 to get a sack, at least one. So that's not a terrible shot. Devin, your opinion on this board. Whoops, that's the wrong one. There we go.
I think Cooper Kupp may have some value there. He's been really phenomenal for the Rams all season long. Could be in the running to win Offensive Player of the Year. I'm not sure when they're going to announce all of those awards, but he's been terrific. And Matthew Stafford, while he's played really well down the stretch of the season, he does tend to create a turnover or two. So if Stafford were to have, say 2-3 interceptions, but, Cooper Kupp went over 150 yards, maybe scored a touchdown or two, and maybe even got a rushing touchdown, I think maybe he could be an interesting bet. But likely if either team wins, the more likely bet would be the quarterback wins. But I will watch out for Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase, two of the more premier receivers in this game.
Yeah. Zach, can I jump in real quick on that? Can I jump in real quick on that? Just real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
To back up what Devin's saying on Cooper Kupp, unlike Joe Burrow, who has been a media darling for the last 6 to 8 weeks, Stafford has been, even though he's played well the last 3 weeks, the media's kind of been like, oh, you were supposed to be better than this. So I think just going in, the mindset is that Cooper Kupp is the real reason why this offense has been so dynamic. So that's an outstanding value, I think, at plus 700 to back up Devin. And I don't like plus 120 at all, because I think there's probably, if the Rams win, I think there's only maybe a 70% chance it's Stafford, whereas it's a 30% chance it would be Kupp, Beckham, or Aaron Donald or someone else in the
Akers.
defense.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I won't be shy. Again, we're not going to make our official picks until next Thursday, but I'm leaning Rams at this point. I'm leaning a lower scoring game. And I think you're right, Jim, in that voters will look for reasons not to vote Stafford. Now, if he goes for 330 and 3 touchdowns, they're not going to have a choice. But if it's, he threw for 260, a couple touchdowns and a pick, and they won it 23-17, if Kupp caught one of those touchdowns and had 100 yards, it could very easily be him. It could very easily be him. So I'm with you guys there. Now, again, if the Bengals win, you got to like Burrow. And so if you're leaning Bengals, that's where you go. Some of the other props, these are just sort of your general yardage props. The first number you see there on the right is the odds for the over, and the second number is the odds for under. So, most of those are kind of close to your general prop line of -115, except for the 2 quarterbacks to go over 1.5 passing TDs. That's juiced quite a bit to the over. So I know one that you mentioned, Devin, was Joe Mixon to go over 95.5 total yards. I do think, and we'll talk about this in a minute, I do think that the Bengals are going to commit to establishing the run. That seems a little high for me, but go ahead and give us your thought process there.
Well, I talked about it a little bit last week as well, earlier in the week too. I think the Bengals' best bet, obviously, besides getting Jamar Chase the ball in quite a bit, as well as some of those other receivers, is to exploit the linebacker mismatch. I really think the Rams' weak point on their defense is their linebackers. They have a really good secondary, and that's shown throughout the playoffs. But that linebacking core is very, I don't want to say exposed, but very weak compared to the other groups on their defense. And when you look at C.J. Uzomah, is probably going to be out for the Bengals. He was kind of their middle of the field guy. I expect Joe Mixon to be in the mix to be a really good receiving back. And while I don't see him getting like over maybe 20, 30 rushing yards, I could see him getting hit on screens, those check down plays, especially if the Rams, really, key in on Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and that receiving group. I think there's a lot of potential for Joe Mixon to get the ball a lot, touch the ball 10, 15 times. And he's shown that he can be a dynamic running back, not only in between the tackles, but in a receiving game as well. So I really like that in terms of total yards, because while I think the rushing yards aren't going to come, I think he's going to get a bulk of that in the receiving.
Spencer, without giving away your favorite picks, because we'll get to that here in a minute, but any of these lines surprise you as far as they were too high or too low? Maybe you looked into them and said, no, that's right. But you've been doing so much research on these. What stuck out to you?
Yeah, I thought that, with the passing touchdowns, I thought it was a little low for Stafford and Burrow, considering that both offenses are pretty pass heavy. And then I thought that Cam Akers' total yards may have been, I know he's their primary back, but I thought it may have been a little bit high there at 81.5. A Cooper Kupp is really high at 102.5, but I can't really argue with that. He's been so good at Chase. I know Chase is a little up and down, but his was a little low, I thought, there at 80.5.
Jim, any thoughts here?
Yeah, where I backed out before, I'm going to completely disagree with him here. I mean, I think that number is way juiced. You look at what his numbers were supposed to be against Kansas City, and not sure what his over under receiving yards. I think it was in the 20 range, but it was like 58 over under, and he went over it. So I think you're giving a little bit too much credence for what he was able to do against Kansas City. And I get that the Rams have been soft in the middle, but if you're Sean McVay, what do you think the Bengals are going to try to do first? They're going to try to establish the run because they know how bad their offensive line is, and they don't want Burrow to get killed early. The Rams know this. I mean, they're going to be keying up just like they did last week, keyed on Elijah Mitchell, and were daring Jimmy G to beat him. I know they're not going to dare Joe Burrow to beat him per se, but they are going to try to take out that run game a little bit early and then see what happens with Burrow, who I think is then more likely to go across the middle. I don't know what his numbers are, but I'd be more inclined to take like a T. Higgins or a Tyler Boyd over. someone like that, because they're gonna Chase is going to be covered well, and I think it's going to be a second or a third receiver, and definitely with Uzama probably out. Boy, that's a really killer for the Bengals, by the way, to have him out. So I'm not sure about these over-under passing touchdowns. They're always a little bit wonky, and I'm with you, Zach. I kind of lean towards the under. So if you don't like a lot of scoring, it's hard to bet an over on it, even if it's low, like 1.5. So, and the only other thing I do like is I do think the Rams are really going to try to get Cam Akers involved. And so if there was one thing that I kind of like is I think that 81.5, and if you look at how even it is balanced on both sides with the 110 and the 110, I think that might be the best value on the board for me as far as value goes. Nothing else jumps out at me as far as value goes. I'll probably bet against Mixon. You can't bet against Cup, but you can't really bet on over 102.5 either. So, and Chase may be a little bit low.
It gets hard talking about the passing touchdowns because, like Spencer said, these are pass-heavy teams. But, when you're talking about a low number, like a number of touchdowns, 2.5's almost too high, right? Like you'd have to juice it way to the under because you can't go out expecting somebody to throw 3 touchdown passes. So maybe the correct line is like 2, but the books don't like making it 2 because then you end up with a bunch of pushes if it's exactly 2. And so that's why you see that line of 1.5. One thing I will say, too, on Super Bowl props especially, the conventional wisdom for those who don't know, if you want to bet an over, bet it early because you're good. Well, overs are popular, right?
Sure.
Anybody who goes to the sports book are going to go in and bet overs. And so what's going to happen is that number's going to creep up throughout the fortnight before the Super Bowl. If you want to bet an under, wait till Saturday night or Sunday morning before the Super Bowl because you want to get that number at high. Like say you like Cooper Kupp under, wait till Super Bowl Sunday. It might be 105.5. And those 3 yards can absolutely make a difference. I mean, they really can. And so that's the conventional wisdom is wait closer to the Super Bowl if you want to bet an under. If you like an over, you have to get it as soon as possible.
Same goes on the total, Zach, because I know that it went down quickly, but it went down quickly because all the sharps were pouncing on that under. But as Drunk Joe and Aunt Mabel get involved, they're going to bet the over, right? Because it's a Super Bowl, and they want to see a lot of points scored. So they bet with what they want, not with what they necessarily think. So I think that number is going to go back up to 49 at least. It may go to 49.5, and there will be value there if you like the under. If you like the over, you can't wait anymore because I don't think it's going down any lower than it is now.
Well, speaking of which, I asked you all for a couple of your favorite picks. And again, we're going to make more picks next week. We got a whole week to go. But just what you're leaning toward right now, and a lot of us like some overs. I mean, we talked about that one right in the middle. That's Devin's pick of Mixon over 95.5. The top 3 are mine, and I like Burrow under 36.5 attempts at even money because I do think the Bengals will try to establish the run. And if they should fall behind, yes, they will pass. But Burrow's going to get sacked quite a bit too, or have to scramble and run. And so, throwaways, of course, count toward 36.5, but it's a pretty high number. I like the under there. Kupp and Rams win. Listen, I've said it before. I like the Rams. They're juiced to -2. Is it -210 right now? And if you can add in a Kupp TD and get that all the way up to +120, I like that value. And then similar to what you were saying, it kind of scares me because Jim and I agree on a lot of this stuff. But I like Akers to go over 59 rushing. And again, Kupp to go over 102 receiving, that's a big number. It's a little bit of a risk. But I think Akers goes way over 59. I really do. The Bengals have given up 5.8 yards per carry in the playoffs. I mean, if you look at it, it's pretty amazing the Bengals are in the Super Bowl. It's a credit to Joe Burrow because their defense has been so-so. Their offensive line's been less than so-so. Their running game has been so-so.
Their pass rush is good, but their run defense isn't so good. So, I mean, they get a lot of credit for what they've been able to do and put pressure on the quarterback, and they really kind of did it last week, right? But they're not as great when they're trying to – if you got a really good runner, and I think Akers, he gets too much grief for the 2 fumbles that he had in a couple weeks ago. But really, I mean, he is a really good back, and I just think that's a great number right there. I'm not sure about the Kupp thing again, but I think it's a great number.
But I really think you're getting a lot of that juice, that third one down at plus 240 on whether Cup gets there. And, because I think Akers is going to get to 60. In fact, if you just look at his regular line, it's, I believe, 62.5. And so 59 is a little bit low. And then the bottom three here, Spencer, these are your picks. Burrow over the 1.5. You're willing to lay the juice there. OBJ, and then I'll tell you right now, I disagree with you on the bottom one. I don't think the Bengals go over 21. But tell us your thinking.
For sure, yeah, I'm still believing in the Bengals. I know because I feel like every week it's just everyone. They are an underdog, but I just feel like every week they get disrespected. Like no one gives them, and rightfully so. I see why the books don't give it because they haven't done it before. But I feel like this is their year. Joe Burrow is really getting it done. So I would say for this, I would probably say parlay it because then you would get some more. You get money if they both hit. Because I'm pretty sure if Burrow goes over on the passing touchdowns, then they'll most likely score over 21 points. So I think you might as well put them together at that point and get a little extra payoff.
My guess, Spencer, is that you probably can't do that in the same game parlay. They'll probably make you pick one or the other.
Okay.
For that exact reason. But yeah, I think you're right. If he goes over the 1.5, do they get over 21? I mean, unless he passes for 2 and they just get one more field goal and they finish at 17. That's a possibility. But yeah, it's
Zach,
more than one way to look at this.
Here's why that's not a good value. And look, I'm not saying Spencer's wrong. I don't have a feel for this yet. I still haven't finished my handicapping. But if you go by what Vegas thinks the implied score is going to be, the implied score is the Rams win 27-22. So you're laying 135 to say over 21. To me, that's kind of a high price to pay to just take a team over there. Now that's if you think the Bengals are going to win, and if you think the Bengals are going to win, then you're better off just playing the money line, or just taking the spread at minus 110, because I think minus 135 for to go over just by 1 point, what their implied score is going to be. I think that's just too high a price to pay.
And to be fair to Spencer, when he sent me this, the line was 21.5, and that's no longer available at Caesars. It dropped to 21. So that changed the juice, and so maybe that changes Spencer's thinking too. By the way, that third one down, just to add to my thoughts about Akers and Kupp going over, that is an odds boost. That's only available at Caesars, and so that's one I like there quite a bit at that juice. But I'm sorry, Spencer, didn't mean to interrupt. Tell us your thoughts on OBJ.
Oh, good. Yeah, the juice is the juice thing is something I didn't really look at close enough, and I see Jim's point. Yeah, with that juice factored in, I think they'll hit, but with that juice, the value's not really there. With Odell though, this is one I'm definitely sticking with because the juice isn't that bad, and I think he's got a really good matchup there because I'm pretty sure he'll probably get Eli Apple, and Eli Apple, as we know, he's vulnerable. He can get burned, and I think Odell is gonna really feast on that because we all know Cooper Kupp he's gonna get double teamed and stuff and get the number one guy locking him up. Which I still think. Cooper Kupp's pretty much unguardable, but I just feel like Odell at that 64.5. He's really been trending up lately too. I think he's ready for this moment. He's been waiting to have a shot at the Super Bowl, and I think at that value, he's a good prop to go get.
Jim, we didn't get a chance to get your picks, but I agree. I agree with OBJ, and I agree with what Jim said. I think there's a big opportunity for number 2 and 3 wide receivers in this game. Both teams have a good top cornerback, but OBJ, on Eli Apple, right. We can sit here and bash Eli Apple because of the whole Saints thing. But that's not a good matchup for the Bengals.
Not at all. It's a terrible matchup for them. Again, I've got to go through more of, position by position. I still haven't been able to do that, and I will start working on that probably this weekend. But one thing I want to go back to with Spencer, and Spencer's I think obviously more advanced than most people that are just getting into this. And so I never really thought about those implied numbers really before maybe a couple years ago. And I think that's what the average bettor who's just getting into this and starting to understand They don't necessarily look at minus 130 or whatever. They just say, oh, I think that Burrow's going to do this, or I think the Bengals going to do this. And it is definitely something that people need to start changing their way of thinking. And when they're looking at a number, you're not just looking at a line. You're not just looking at a yardage total. Like for Devin's bet on Mixon. Just because I don't necessarily like it, I think you're getting a good price there. So if you do think they're going to be able to expose the middle of the field, it's not an egregious number, and minus 105 is a good number there. So Devin's bet, while I don't necessarily agree with what he's picking, he's getting good value there. And I just think that people need to think more about those things when they're just going in and not just looking at whatever the number is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just to add to that, shop around. Listen, this is your money. Just like you go shopping around at grocery stores, one book might have better odds than the other, or even at the same book, you might see good example. And I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds here. Cameroon-Egypt soccer game today. Okay, you can bet. I did my little handicap. I like Egypt. Okay, and I don't even. The game is over at this point. I don't even see who won. But this is just a good example. I liked Egypt. You can bet a double chance on Egypt or a draw, and it was, I think, minus 120. Well, you could also bet Egypt plus 0.5 goals, which is the same thing. They either win or draw.
0-0, baby.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay, so I won. But I got Egypt plus 0.5 at minus 105. So to bet an Egypt a double chance, a draw or a win at minus 120 is the same thing in the same book. But if I'm paying attention, I got minus 105 instead of minus 120. I risked less for the same winnings. So it's just a good matter. Another good one.
What did Devin have on that match? Devin, let me know. What did you have on the Roonies in Egypt? Can you let us know?
Can't give out that information.
Love it. All right, you can tell me on the side, on the download. Just let me know.
I will have you know that Cameroon is not the Roonies. They are, and this is important. The World Cup's coming, okay? This is important. They are the Indomitable Lions, which is the most badass nickname in all of sports. So
it sounds like a really bad movie that if John Candy were still alive, he would be the focal subject.
That's only if they were called the Roonies. See, Nick, we're going to get to golf, man. Don't bash my. I've been doing well in soccer. I hit the 3-0 exacta on the U.S. last night. All right. So back on to topic here. We're going to have more prop bets from the Super Bowl. I don't even really want to ask you guys for a lean at this point because I want to save it for next week, our Super Bowl picks. But Jim, you and I both said we kind of are leaning the under and maybe the Rams. Spencer, you said you're leaning toward the Bengals. Devin, how about you? If you had to pick a lean at this point, what are you thinking before making your final pick?
I think I'm leaning probably the Bengals to cover and the under to hit. I think it's going to be a closely contested game. I think both teams are going to come in with a great game plan, and it's really going to come down to the second half adjustments, and if the Bengals can kind of get over the nerves of the game, especially with a good portion of the Rams being back from that last Super Bowl appearance. But I just think that this game, it's not going to end up in a blowout. I just have that feeling that both teams kind of took a different path to this game. The Bengals are ahead of schedule. Rams should have been here all along, but it took them a while to kind of get everything going. But I really think, we're going to see individual matchups be exploited. So I think both teams are going to find a matchup that they like and continue to exploit it. And I think it's going to be one of those games that's going to be in the 20s, but I do think the under still hits. And I think there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of ball movement in this game as well. But I have a feeling once both teams get near the red zone, there's going to be a lot of settling for field goals because I think both teams, while they're explosive offenses, they both have some issues, especially in the playoffs, converting touchdowns.
So we'll talk more about that. By the way, you had mentioned earlier Kupp being up for Offensive Player of the Year. The NFL Honors Show is next Thursday night, February the 10th. So that's when you get your regular season MVP, Offensive Defensive Player of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year, all that kind of stuff, and next year's Hall of Fame class as well. So that's a big night next Thursday night. Before that, on Monday, we'll have Bayou Bets, of course, and we'll talk about the weekend that was and dig more into the Super Bowl. And then on Tuesday, fantasy roundup 3:30, Spencer and I will just kind of have a prop bet special. Maybe we'll invite Jim on for that show. Jim likes his prop bets. Spencer, give us a little tease for something interesting you have found out already. Again, we're going to get really deep into this on Tuesday, but tell us something interesting you found out about some prop bets as a tease.
All right, yeah, I noticed that for the Gatorade color, it's pretty interesting that that orange and blue have been by far the most common in recent years. And early on, it was mainly clear, which is just water. That was the most common thing. Just they would say Gatorade on the thing, but it was really just water inside. But lately, it's been actual Gatorade, but it's usually either blue or orange. And another weird thing, red has never been poured. They've never had red Gatorade, which is a very common Gatorade, but it's never happened. Maybe this is the year red gets in.
It stains the uniform.
That's probably exactly what it is. Although I can't imagine that blue or orange or purple doesn't. So I don't know. But no, it's interesting. I mean, one thing to do, I was looking at your list of the Gatorade colors, and like Bill Belichick, half the time has had blue and half the time didn't have Gatorade dumped on him at all. He just gave the stare down to his captains, like, don't you dare. You know,
oh yeah, he hated it. I watched some videos on different ones, and he would it's like a lot of coaches would be like, just laughing off, but he'd be like, oh, he'd be pissed. He'd be pissed if they dumped it on.
But it's two coaches who've never won, so we don't know. I mean,
remember when Saban got really
didn't win, and obviously Zach Taylor.
Remember when Saban got super ticked off that they dumped the Gatorade on him, and he got blasted in the media about it, and the next year he made it a point to with the big fake smile, and when he got it dumped on him the next time, and he was like fake hugging people, and the guy has no personality. But that's another story.
Yeah,
not to get off topic.
We're talking.
Do you
about
remember that?
Colors,
I mean,
so.
Well, it was, and that I specifically remember red Gatorade for that. I mean, you can go back and look it up. Like he got super ticked off, and I don't know why I remember this, but when he got happy, the next year when they dumped it on him, it was some light color. It was either the yellow one or the clear. I don't remember, but
which doesn't make any sense because he's wearing red anyway. So,
no, I think when he got super ticked, I think he was wearing that white. I think he was wearing that white Bama shirt.
Saban thinks on such a higher level than the rest of us that who knows
there's no doubt
exactly
about
what
that.
The problem was. Get to a couple other things here to kind of preview the weekend before we wrap things up. And one of them, just looking at some NBA championship odds, it's amazing. I bring this up for a couple of reasons. Number one, do y'all remember when the Lakers were like the second favorite at 3-1? And I think Jim and I both said, don't bet on the Lakers. They're not good enough to win it. They hype, hat, no cattle. And now they're down at 18-1. I still think they're overpriced. They might not even make the playoffs.
Way overpriced. The Bulls are a way better bet than the Lakers. If you put them at the same number, I'd take the Bulls over the Lakers.
The other reason I bring this up is because there's a couple of teams on here I really like, and that's Suns at plus 650 and 100%. The Bucks at 7-1. And both these Suns look like they're going to have the number one seed in the West. And yes, I know Golden State's there, but that means they're going to have to come to Phoenix. Same thing with Milwaukee. They're like a couple games out, but I think my money would be on them getting the number one seed. They're the defending champs. Nobody's talking about them. They had the same team as last year. And now you're saying the Nets are going to have to come to Milwaukee for a game 7. I think both of those have great value in Phoenix and Milwaukee.
I think I love Phoenix. That's my number one play. I don't understand plus 650. I got them last year, I think around the same time for like plus 1100, which I didn't understand either. Now, obviously I didn't win it, but I still thought that was a great price. But to me, I think Phoenix and Golden State are head and shoulders above the rest of this field, including the Nets. They do have so many inner turmoil issues. I just don't see. I think they're going to do a lot like they did last year. So to me, if you want to plop a little bit down on Phoenix and Golden State, I think you could really have a good bet. If you think about it, let's just use 10 because that's kind of what we've been using, but you put 10 down at plus 650, you win 65, or 10 at plus 500. You're putting 20 down to win at least 500, 2.5 to 1. I think there's a better than 2.5 to 1. The NBA champion is either Golden State or Phoenix.
I do think Brooklyn will be there in the end, but that price is far too rich for me. You'd have to give me at least 5 to 1 to even think about betting Brooklyn. Spencer or Devin, your thoughts here on these odds? If you had to make a play, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't know how the Nets are the favorite. I mean, with all the turmoil that y'all mentioned, it's Kyrie Irving situation. He's still just a part-time player. I mean, if he had gotten the vax and was back full-time, even then I would probably be like, I shouldn't be like lower than 5 to 1. But at that, I don't understand that at all. And then KD's still out, so that just boggles my mind. But as far as a good value here, I'm thinking the Bulls there are pretty good, but the Heat, the Heat, if healthy, with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Kyle Lowry, they've got a good core there, and then they've got a good supporting cast with Tyler Herro, Duncan Robinson. I mean, that's a team that could be a sneaky play.
Devin?
I still like the Milwaukee Bucks to get back to the NBA Finals. I think 7 to 1 odds, you're gonna get good value. I understand they're not as good or haven't been playing as well as they have last year. They've been blown out a few times this year, but they still have the reigning Finals MVP in Giannis Antetokounmpo, and whether or not they get the 1 seed, and we'll see what happens. I still like the Bucks and what they bring. I think they still have tremendous value to make it back to the finals. The Nets, we don't know how healthy Kevin Durant's going to be down the stretch. Obviously, the situation with Kyrie Irving. So when you look at this field, I still like the Milwaukee Bucks, because when you look at the Phoenix Suns and Golden State Warriors, I know Golden State's been playing phenomenal, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, but there's no one on the Phoenix Suns or Golden State roster that will be able to stop Giannis. And we know teams that typically win the NBA title, they kind of, the next season, they don't always come and ready to play every single night because they're looking for the long haul, not necessarily what's going on during the season. But when I look at this list, it'll be hard for me not to pick the Bucks here, because we've seen them do it. And Giannis, especially in the playoffs, he turned out to be pretty unstoppable.
No, I mean, I agree with you, because I think before the season, I was real careful not to put too much stock in Phoenix or Milwaukee because of what you said. You make the finals one year, there's sort of that natural letdown, and because the season didn't end until July last year, is that going to be even exacerbated even more? The answer is no, it hasn't. Both teams are playing real well, and so now I'm sort of starting to buy in on both of those teams, as I said. So we'll see what happens. The other thing I wanted to get to real quick, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am in golf, these are odds as of 4 o'clock, so about 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, Hoagie's not going to be plus 1,200 anymore.
No, he's going up because he's at 9 under with a hole yet to play.
Love him.
I have to say, is that Hoagie like the sandwich, or is that Hodge like Merrill Hodge?
I thought it was Hoagie, but Nick Marks would know better than me.
We'll see if Nick's still listening. He can chime in there
somewhere.
I do. Sometimes I wish these futures you could bet the opposite, because like Jordan Spieth's not winning this tournament. Give me minus 2,000, and I'll just wait until the weekend and cash my. Same thing with the Lakers. Okay, they're plus 1,800 to win the title. Can I get minus 2,200 and I'll bet them not to win the title? And I mean that's a hell of an investment.
I agree. Can I bet the Pels at minus 10,000? I'll put $1 down to win a quarter of a cent.
There's a reason they don't let you do that, by the way. There's a reason they do not let you do that. The Irishman Seamus Power is up at the top of the leaderboard here too, but we also, Jim, Austin Eckroat was leading for a while, and I think he's tied for third right now. He's
6 under.
back, but I mean, it's a guy going into the weekend. I know Uncle Big Nick said it. You said you liked him going in. Long shot worth looking at.
Yeah, I mean, and going into you just kind of have to look and see who plays well in these kind of courses. And really, this is a weird week too, where if they did well last week, they probably have a good chance to do well again this week, like a Justin Rose. Like a Jason Day did well last week. This is his kind of course. You go back and look at his history at Pebble Beach, and it's really good. Maverick McNeely played well last week. So hence why their odds may seem skewed and a little bit too low. But you're getting good value there. He said Nick saying it. We butchered his name. Hoagie, by the way, Hodge.
Hodge.
Hoge.
Hoagie.
I mean, maybe it'd be Hoge here in Louisiana.
Just call him winner, man, and I'll be happy. I'll be happy. I'll call him.
I'll be
he
super
wants.
happy. He can just finish in the top 10. I'll be super thrilled.
So no, it's interesting, and one thing about this tournament in particular, you have to keep an eye on. It's played on 3 different courses. So sometimes, okay, one course may be playing easier than the other 2, and so if you get that course first, maybe you have more of an artificial advantage. So that's another variable. Golf betting has so many variables that you've got to keep an eye on, and so we will be delving into more and more of that. This is exactly right. This is what I'm saying. If he wins, we can call him whatever he wants because that means that we're all happy.
Tommy boy.
There you go. That's what Gronk called Brady.
Oh, that's right. No, he ain't Brady.
Hey, you're watching At the Book here on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. We've got a new feature on bet.nola.com. It's called Daily Best Bets, and we started it to coincide with mobile sports betting going live in Louisiana. We've been doing it for about a week. We've done pretty well so far. We're up, we said $52. I get 5 units we're up, let's say, depending on how many units you want to bet. Pretty good stuff. Here's what we've had this week. Jim, you, Spencer, and I have all taken part in some of this. And frankly, we've won every time we've kind of had normal juice, the -110s and -120s. It's when we've been going into the plus odds, we've gotten ourselves in trouble, which is probably a lesson for everybody.
Yeah, but it's still fun to put those in, right? If you just look at the average Joe Blow lines, we've done extremely well, and maybe we ought to separate that in our results. I don't know, but there's a reason why something's plus 650. It's supposed to hit basically 1 out of 8 times. So you're not going to hit those a ton, but at least we back the reasons why we like them. And if someone looked at the parlay Pelicans, Bucks, Nuggets, Suns, for example, maybe they like 2 of those. Maybe they say, I like the Bucks and Nuggets, and they take those 2 out of there and can make that parlay for themselves or something along those lines. But,
I believe the Nuggets were the only one of those teams that lost. I believe.
Yeah, that was a parlay I'd put together. Yeah, 3 of the 4 hit, the Pels, Bucks, and Suns. I was feeling good. Like, the Nuggets let me down there. I was hoping the Joker would come through, but yeah, the Timberwolves, I kind of underestimated them. That's who they were playing, and the Timberwolves have really been trending up as of late.
I will say this: if Zach Ewing puts a soccer bet in there, you probably ought to bet.
I was hot on soccer this week. In fact, as a bonus,
Devin Jackson's college football picks.
Yeah, the bonus on that U.S. Honduras, I said bet the 3-0 exacta and bet Pulisic to score, and we got both of them. And also the U.S. to win both halves, we got that one too. And so that was a good night for me. And the World Cup qualifiers will be back in March 24th, I think it is. And before that, we'll have plenty of club soccer too. So I'll have some soccer picks for you guys. Today's picks, one of them obviously you can't. Although I think Day is still right around 20-1. He finished at 4 under. And so if you still like that, you could still bet it. In fact, actually, the odds are probably lower than that now.
I'll go look while you're talking about it.
Yeah, and then the other one, Jim, is Suns over Days at 2,200.
Yep, 2,200. Exactly what it was before.
So if you still like it, you can still get it at those odds. The favorite, by the way, the co-favorites now are Seamus Power and Patrick Cantley, plus 350 each. And Hoge, Tommy Boy is at 6-1. So those are your 3 favorites right now. The other one, Jim, you put together this morning's daily best bets, Suns money line over the Hawks. I am curious, the money line instead of the 4.5-point spread. What was the thinking there?
Because the Hawks have played very well as of late, and they've played a lot of tight games. And in this series, they played very well at home. So the Suns have been on a mini road trip. They won 11 in a row. They won a lot of games on the road too, but I just don't trust the 4. So I'd rather just take the 2-1 odds, basically, that they're going to win the game outright. And in fact, I think going back on it, I did a parlay this afternoon at the Suns money line in San Antonio at plus 6.5. And that got me a pretty good, it's plus 196 on a parlay. So I'd almost rather take the Suns money line and parlay it with something else. But I think you're getting enough. I don't normally like money lines when you're going over 200 in any scenario. But In this case, I do, because I think the Suns match up well with the Hawks, but the Hawks have been playing well, and so I do think it's going to be a tight game. I just didn't like that 4 points. I think it could be a 2 or 3 point game, and I think it's safer to just take a chance there.
We will wrap things up with final thoughts here before we go. But before we do that, I do want to let you know again, go to NOLA.com/Caesars. You can join the fun. Bet $20 and get $300. We've got that offer for you ready to go right now. NOLA.com/Caesars. Or if you go through the App Store, just make sure you put in the promo code NOLA300, and you're going to get that $300 bonus. You missed out on the first week of fun, but there's plenty more to come. The Super Bowl is obviously around the corner. Golf, basketball. And so on that note, but before we go here on At the Book, ask each of you guys one thing, since it's our first weekend really without football since August. Shed a tear for that. I mean, I'm not counting the Pro Bowl. I couldn't even get a line on the Pro Bowl, by the way. Nobody even knows who's going to play. Give me one thing you're looking forward to this weekend, the first weekend without football, that can keep people interested. Spencer, you first.
All right, yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with these basketball props, especially the player props scoring wise. Like, I did really well last night. I believe I did like 5 or 6 players and hit on. I think it was one of the guys didn't play, Aaron Gordon. He was out, so that one voided. So out of the 5 I hit 4 out of 5. I had 3 overs and 1 under. And the only one that didn't hit was Ja Morant over 27.5. And then all the others hit. Jared Allen hit the under. The dude for the Magic who's been hot scoring, he went over, as well as a Kyle Kuzma. That was the one I bet the most on, because with no Bradley Beal, I figured, well, he's definitely going to go over 19 points. And sure enough, he had 24. So, yeah, I've been really enjoying that as a fantasy enthusiast. I like keeping up with how individuals are doing during games. So, yeah, I'll go hit up those basketball props. There's some value to be had there.
He's the guru for a reason. All right? That's all I'm going to say about that. Devin, one thing you're looking forward to this weekend?
Well, while there's not, NFL football or anything on, they do have some all-star games going on college-wise, and something for you guys to keep in mind.
On brand, baby. On brand.
But something for you guys to keep in mind. I don't know how soon the odds come up for like NFL draft stuff, but I would put money down on Malik Willis being the first quarterback taken in April. So that's something to keep in mind for like future bets, regarding the NFL draft. But teams fell in love with him down at the Senior Bowl, and I would not be surprised if he was the first quarterback off the board.
I love it. I love the advice. I don't believe a lot of draft props are up yet, but those are coming, especially after the combine here at the end of the month. Those will be coming, and we'll talk a lot about that in March and April. Jim, one thing to look forward to this weekend.
I'm looking forward to Devin wearing a Liberty jersey. I mean, I think it should happen. He loves that team.
Liberty.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I think the Saints coaching talk is going to be coming to a head soon. I think they are going to I really think I have a feeling they're going to make a hire before the Super Bowl, whether it's Dennis Allen or not. Jeff Duncan is coming on Datitude tomorrow morning. Shameless plug. Not shameless power, shameless plug. And we're going to be discussing. He had his odds up yesterday on who he thinks is going to be the coach. My gut still, I've got this weird feeling it's not Dennis Allen, but we're going to be talking about that. And then Uncle Big Nick's going to be coming on and giving us some golf logic, which ought to be interesting. So those are the 2 things I'm looking forward to for Saints coaching search and golf. And it'll be golf on the television all weekend at the Dairy House.
All right. And I'll tell you to tune into some college basketball, some really, really good games this weekend. Starts tonight.
I don't even know who LSU plays this weekend.
It starts to LSU plays Vanderbilt on Saturday. That's not really one of the good games. It is a road game, and LSU's got to get back on track. They're in a free fall right now.
Did they lose there last year?
I can't remember, but I will say Arizona, who I really like. I've got some futures bets on Arizona to win the national title. They host the Southern Cal schools. Both of them are very good. UCLA whipped them in Westwood a couple weeks ago. So I like Arizona to get some revenge tonight. They're laying 6.5. And then they get USC on Saturday, so that's another good game. Baylor and Kansas on Saturday. I mean, come on, that's one of the games of the year. Duke, North Carolina. So it's a great weekend for college basketball. So check out some of those. You can put together some parlays. You can do whatever it is that you want to do with those on the Caesar Sportsbook. So with that being said, we got the whole crew today. I was happy to do it. And this has been At the Book for producer Devin Jackson, Spencer the Guru Urquhart, and Jim Derry. I'm Zach Ewing. We'll see you next time.